Hey guys, it's Yishan from the YUGIOH Club at UCI. You're also your resident Gren Maju expert. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about a new card from Phantom Rage. It's called Feedback, and this card has been making waves in Gren Maju discussions, as well as just the discussion of regular Yu-Gi-Oh! And for those of you that don't know what it does, I'm going to have it on the screen right now. But basically, you can banish cards from your extra deck face down to banish the same number from your opponent's extra deck till the end of the turn. So it doesn't, yours stay banished forever, your opponent's only get banished for the turn. If it wasn't for the turn, this card would be totally bonkers. I think it would be main deck 3 of in almost every Gren Maju deck. I also wanted to talk about Feedback more in terms of a Gren Maju deck and less in terms of other decks. I just want to keep it Gren Maju focused here. Okay, so before we understand what I think about Feedback, and while some people think it's good, some people think it's bad, some people think it's somewhere in the middle, I'm more of in that third camp right in the middle. But before we understand where I think Feedback will fit in the Gren Maju strategy, I need to talk about the two types of Gren Maju decks. If you're an expert Gren Maju player, you know that there's probably 3 types of Gren Maju decks that are pretty popular. There's the Stun style, there's the Golden Castle style, and there's the Danger style. The Stun style tends to be more of a go first, try to control a game, and then sort of, if you need to, summon that big Gren Maju, win the game. The other two, Golden Castle and Danger, while they're slightly different decks, I'm just going to group them as one in this video. They're both more of a go second, summon big beaters, and try to OTK your opponent. Okay, so I first want to talk about Feedback in the context of the Stun Gren Maju decks. And for those decks, I just don't think Feedback is very good. And the reason is that, okay, well, let's take a look. Feedback has to replace something, right? First of all, it's not good in every matchup, okay? So you may have to put it in a side deck. Secondly, it's competing for Pot of Extravagance space, because Pot of Extravagance sometimes banishes 6 to 12 cards from your extra deck, and Feedback can be a little bit lackluster if it only banishes 4 or 5 or even like 8 cards from your opponent's extra deck. It depends on certain matchups, but that's part of the reason. Also, it just doesn't stun your opponent forever. When you're putting like Inspector Border, you might not even need Feedback at that point. You might just want to run like Solemn Strike or cards that protect your Inspector Border. So I think it's a little bit too weak in the stun version to see play. Now the problem with the OTK version is that Feedback is a trap card. So you'd rather play it if you're going first, but the OTK versions like to go second all the time. And so that means that I think Feedback has its place in the OTK version of Gren Maju decks, but in the side deck. And here's the reason. Let's just imagine, I'm going to take an example scenario. We're playing against, Adam Emancipator. They make us go first, right? Well, we simply set our Feedback. Maybe we banish 10 cards from our extra deck. On their turn, they basically skip their turn, right? And then on the next turn, we just go right there and OTK them. Since they made us go first, they were like, oh, we don't want to get OTK'd by Gren Maju. Boom, we hit them with Feedback, and then we OTK them. That's a great use of Feedback. I think that's where Feedback will really shine. Now, one thing I want to talk about as we dive a little bit deeper into how to make use of Feedback in your sideboard. And again, I'm not too sure if this is, the right way going forward, but it's definitely something to try out and to test in Gren Maju decks for yourselves, which is sort of this idea of a Trap Trick side deck. Now, Trap Trick is a trap card that basically lets you set any normal trap from your deck and activate it that turn, right? Okay, so here's my thought right now. Is you run like 3 Trap Trick, you could run 3 Feedback, and remember, the Feedback is a normal trap, so Trap Trick can search it from your deck. Then you can run other traps. So for the back row decks, you might run something like Heavy Storm Duster. And maybe for Salamangreater, for graveyard decks, you can run a trap card called Different Dimension Ground, right? And that basically is a dimensional fissure for the whole tournament. It's a normal trap. And so you run Trap Trick plus a bunch of normal traps, and what Trap Trick allows you to do is it allows you to see your side deck cards very often, because not only do you get to decide on the 3 copies of the trap that's good in this specific matchup, you also get to decide in 3 Trap Tricks, so you have 6 in your deck, and that's a much higher chance of drawing it. Now, here's where I get worried about this sort of side deck, is because, it's sort of not very good at going second when you're siding. A lot of your opponents will want to go, or game 3, you want to go second, you make your opponent go first. You just don't have much to side in. So what if Super Poly's a dead card? What are you going to side in? So maybe you reserve 3 spots in your side deck for other cards. I'm not sure, but these are some of the things I worry about when I think about feedback. Feedback is a very powerful card. It's like dimensional fissure basically, or sorry, dimensional barrier basically, but it can also hit links, but at the cost of your extra deck. Now that can be a benefit in Gren Maju sometimes. Also, Gren Maju has this great flexibility with being able to banish most of the cards in their extra deck, even in the OTK versions, and keep a few that they need for the specific matchup that they're playing. So that's my current thoughts. I think the Trap Trick side deck is an interesting idea. I think if feedback will see play, it'll definitely see play as a side deck card. And I hope that all your duels go well. I hope that you guys test this card out for yourselves when it comes out. I'm definitely gonna be picking up some copies, and it's a little bit far away, but hey, you know, it's a Gren Maju card, so I'm gonna like it. One final thing I wanna say about if you do decide to side in feedback is feedback is a one-turn stop, right? Which means that you probably want to make sure that the rest of the deck is straight gas. And what I mean by this is, by gas, is you don't really want to be having hand traps or cards that don't contribute to OTKing if you're going this feedback route. The reason is because, okay, if I stop you for a turn, right, I'm planning on killing you with the OTK right away on my next turn. And so it's important to make sure you don't brick and draw too many useless cards that don't help you OTK. So just a little tip for how to use this sort of style of card in Gren Maju, this sort of I'm gonna stun you for one turn sort of thing. You know, like cards like Vanity's Fiend and There Can Be Only One are a little bit different because they can just hold a lock on the game forever. But feedback, you need to be careful how you use. But there is some flexibility. That's the trade-off, is there's some flexibility with Trap Trick. So there's that. Okay, I think I've said everything I want to say. I hope you guys can tell me what you guys think of feedback in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.